Hey everyone, Joe Brady here, and today we're going to look at another video that involves doing an edit on an image to improve its composition. Now, when the raw file was first looked at, it didn't look that great, but the composition was good. Now, the camera didn't capture it well because of the contrast. There's bright clouds in the sky and deep shadows right in the foreground, but on an important element in the frame. So I had to expose for the sky, but I underdid it a little bit. I played it a little too conservatively, so we're going to have to fix that. We're going to do that in Lightroom. Now, after that, the composition needed a little bit of tightening. Some of the elements were a little too far apart, and could I have done it with a lens change? Perhaps, maybe squatting down a little more might have done it. But the real answer was it was actually pretty easy to do in Photoshop, just to compress a few areas to really make it tight. So join me. We're going to go visit Ross Castle in Killarney, Ireland. Let's see how it comes out. Alrighty, so welcome to some Lightroom and Photoshop editing. We're going to take this image and see what we can do with it. There were a handful of images I took here. This is actually Ross Castle in Killarney, Ireland. And I had been walking around the castle, but I wanted to walk around. There's another kind of island around the corner. I walked over there. I came across this boat, and I thought it was great. Now, I made a couple mistakes. I underexposed this. I was very concerned about keeping the detail in the clouds. And you can see from the histogram in the upper right that I was a little too conservative, but not a big deal. In fact, if I hit the black clipping, you can see the only pure black I've got is in the deep shadow underneath the boat, so we can deal with that. But compositionally, I like this a lot. There were some other shots I took here, and I'll show you their pre-edits. So here's a horizontal. Don't like it as well. Here's a vertical that's actually overexposed. So I kind of made a mess of things while I was here. I don't know what I was thinking. But compositionally wise, I really like this one. And I think we can make it a lot better pretty easily. So we're going to start in Lightroom, but I see something I want to do in Photoshop to help the composition. I particularly like the angle of the boat, the chain leading up to the boat, the castle in the distance, and a couple of ducks sitting on the rocks. So let's see what we can do with this. So what are the problems? Obviously, let's just start by bringing the shadows all the way up. And let's bring the exposure up so that we're closer off to the right edge. I'm going to bring it up even a little further because I'm just going to bring the highlights down so that I get a little bit more room to open up. I mean, and that quickly, look where we've gone. While we're here, let's add some texture and clarity, some vibrance to bring up the blues and greens, and let's bring up the overall saturation. And that quickly, we've gone from there to there. Well, I guess the image was okay. The exposure was okay, just need a little adjustments. Now, we've got a color issue going on here because we've got two very distinct color temperatures. In the foreground here, which looks good, the color's great, but in the background, the color's off, and that's because we got one in shade and one out in the sun or somewhat cloudy sun. So let's get a graduated filter, and I'm going to bring it down from the top down to about the top of the boat. So what are the problems? Well, it's gone a little bit too yellow. So what's the opposite of yellow? Blue, and you can see by the color temperature up here, let's push it a little bit more towards the blue. And I'm going to make it a little greener also. And while we're here, we need to bring out these clouds a little more. Let's go ahead and bring up the dehaze a bit. There we go. That did a nice job on the trees in the foreground, added some detail to the clouds. I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit more. In fact, I'm going to take out a little more of the yellow. However, it made the top of the tower of the castle go a little too dark. In fact, we hit the O key, we can see everything that's being affected. Let's go ahead and get a brush. And I've got auto mask on, but I'm going to hit the Alt key, which I still have auto mask on, which turns it into a minus. And I can bring the O back on. Let's just take the castle out of this adjustment because the castle color was fine. And actually, if you think about it, the way the light's coming in, it's kind of from behind the castle, or at least heavily off to one side. So it's kind of in shade as well. Picked up a little bit over here that I didn't want to get rid of. Let's get that sky back. So there we go. You got the castle pretty much out of there. And let's hit the O key and hit done. And that's looking a heck of a lot better. Now, you could say we're done. The image is okay. What are the things that we can do to make it a little better? Oh, for one, there's a spot over here. Look at that. So let's hit the Q key, which is spot removal. And then A, which will show us our spots as lovely little circles. Let's go ahead and just hit enter on top of that. And let's back off on the zoom. In fact, let's go in at 50% and navigate around and see if we see any more pure circles. There's apparently a bird or something right here. Let's see what that is. Don't know what it is. Some kind of UFO. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. By the way, when you have something that is stretched out like this, what you can do is click on one end, and it's going to go sample from somewhere, but then hold down the shift key and go to the other end of whatever this problem thing is, and it will draw a straight line in between the two and fix that. So we hit A, and that's gone. We've got one little spot here. Looks like a bird. Let's just get rid of that. Not that I have anything against birds, but it's just a spot. And as we look through, I think we got everything that's actually going to show up. So while we're here, there's the ducks. Look at, they look great on the rocks sitting there. But as we look into the castle, we've got a couple of things. Well, there's this orange thing. I'm not sure if it needs to go or not. I don't like it. It's kind of a bit of an eyesore. It's some kind of raft or something, as somebody was having a problem in the lake. However, it does kind of mirror exactly the color of the pail or bucket inside the rowboat. I'm going to hold off on that. There is one person here, but she's just too small in the frame to matter. Some guy here hanging up on the wall where the guns are. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to leave the people here for now. If I was going to make a big print of this, I might consider getting rid of all the people, but they were there, so let's leave them be. Compositionally wise now, let's see. We've made a great strides towards turning this into a nice image. How can we make it a little bit tighter? Maybe we could bring these branches down. They're lovely how they're framing the castle tower. Maybe we could bring them down a little more so that we could crop off the top, yet keep all of our branches. Also in the image, this one little rock here to me is a distraction, this one under the water, because it's a very light thing, and your eye kind of goes to it, and I don't want your eye to go to it. So I think it's time to bring this into Photoshop to do these edits. So let's hit Command or Control E, or go up to Photo, Edit in Photoshop. So here's our image opened in Photoshop. I'm going to Command J or Control J to make a copy of the background layer so that we always have a pristine layer to go back to should we need it. So Command J, and there's our copy. Okay, so what did I say? Well, I wanted to get rid of this rock. Could I have gotten rid of this in Lightroom? Maybe, but I know I had to come into Photoshop, and for getting rid of stuff bigger than spots, Photoshop just does a much better job of it. So let's go ahead and zoom in to the bottom of the boat. And there's the rock. And let's get the lasso tool, and we'll draw around the rock. And I'm going to hit the keyboard shortcut, Shift F5 to bring up content aware fill, hit OK. See how good Photoshop does of getting rid of that, and perfectly. So that's gone. So let's see, what else do we need to fix? You know what? Let's get rid of this orange buoy thing because it is a distraction. We can always change our minds. We have that pristine copy. So again, I'm just got the lasso tool. I'm drawing around it. Shift F5 to bring up content aware. And that's gone. Okay. There's actually somebody right in here in the doorway taking a picture. That's fine. Also, these are lights that illuminate the castle at night. We're beyond, this is 214%, so that's fine. Again, if I wanted to get rid of all the people, I could do that. So I mentioned about tightening up the composition a little bit by bringing the top down. Could I have accomplished this while I was here? In fact, yes, I have a couple of the shots I did, but I didn't get it exactly right. I'd like to bring everything over in the background a little closer to the boat. So let's use the marquee tool. Actually, let's zoom out a little bit so we have some room. Let's get the marquee tool, and I'm going to start by selecting, all the way right down to the boat. And let's see what happens if we can not squish the castle with content aware scale. So edit content aware scale, hold down the shift key on the top, and let's start bringing this down. And no, right away it squishes the castle. That we can't have. So let's deselect that, and let's get the marquee tool, and we'll just go about halfway down the tower. And again, edit content aware scale. Hold down the shift key and see now we can bring the trees down and it leaves the tower alone. Let's see how far we can go before it starts to squish the tower. Right about there it starts squishing it. So I think about right there will bring us down a little bit. And that's going to have the effect of just bringing us a little bit closer. I think we can probably do the same on the bottom half of the image if we wanted to decrease the space between the boat and the land over there. So let's hit deselect on that. So I would like to change the distance in between the boat and the castle. I just want to compress this middle distance a little bit. I could have done it by squatting down a little bit more than I did, but I didn't. So let's fix it here. I'm going to use the marquee tool and select the middle of the image just down, just not quite touching the boat. And to give myself guidelines, I'm going to hit the Command R key to bring up rulers. And I'm going to put rulers on my selection, just so I have a reference as to where things finished and started. All right, so now let's go to Edit Content Aware Scale. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and bring up the bottom. I just want to bring them a little bit closer. Like that. There we go. I'll hit enter on that to let it do its squish. All right, I'm going to deselect that. Now I'm going to select the bottom of the image from our guide here. If you go to View, you can have Snap to Guides, which I have chosen here. So again, it's View, Snap to Guides. So that way when I go to get the selection tool, it would automatically line up on that guide that I created. And there's our hole. I hide the background. There's the hole. There's what we just squished. So with the V key and the Shift key, I'm going to bring this up until it matches. And if I really want to see that I've got it well, let's zoom in real close and get the V key. And you can see as I bring it up and down, and there we go. Right there, hit enter. And deselect, and there we go. Now it's all lined up together. So let's get rid of the guides. So we can go to View, hide the extras, hide the guides, get rid of the rulers. And if I command click on this layer now, you can see it selects everything we've got and leaves the transparent areas behind out of the image. So then I can just go to image crop. Could I have used the crop tool? Yes, could have done that. I just find this to be very precise and quick. So there we go. And I think that's looking a heck of a lot better. In fact, let's bring it back into Lightroom and then we can compare the two side by side. So let me save this and let's head back into Lightroom where our image will be sitting waiting for us. All right, so here's our new edit and let's hit the C key, which is compare, and we'll see our before and after. And let's hit Shift Tab to get rid of the menus, and then the L key, let's hit it again. And then the L key to turn out the lights. Hit that twice. So here's our image that we started with on the left. And what did I say the distractions were? Well, one, this rock had to go. The orange buoy over here. And I brought the top of the image down a little bit. And we also compressed the difference between the boat and the land. And you can see compositionally, it's a fine set of adjustments, but it makes everything just a little bit tighter. Just putting everything together. The castle's a little closer to the boat. Since we compressed the top, it had the effect of making the castle bigger because it's taking up more area in the top half of the image. We've got the nice direction. We've almost got a nice curve that goes in from the shadow at the bottom of the boat that leads us to the castle, and it's framed by the trees around. So one last step to finish off our image. Let's go to Effects. We're going to put a little vignette around this. I'm going to bring the vignette all the way in. I think a rounded vignette probably is good for this one. I'm going to make it a little less round, and I'm going to bring the midpoint in. That brings the sides in a little bit more. And I'm going to feather it off a little and then back it off to, just -12. Again, I love this. It doesn't look like I did anything, but if I hit the on-off button for the panel, you can see just that slight bit of darkening that happens around the edges. That just makes the image look better. Just that little darkening. And actually, as I do the darkening, I see that this seems a little darker, although it probably really isn't. Let's add a little bit more light into the boat going up to the castle. So I'm going to help along with a nice big brush here. I'm going to turn off auto mask. I'm going to cut down on the feather and hit the O key so we can see what we're doing. So I'm going to help along this curve. We had talked about this earlier. We'll add the boat into that. We can even come into the castle a little more. So I'm creating a light path here. I hit O, and I'm just going to bring the exposure up a little bit. It's just a little, not a lot, just enough to open up the shadow. Yeah, it's less than half a stop. You can see the 0.46 over here. And by the way, when you do this, I find it helpful if you actually don't look right at the middle of the screen, but look off to one side. You pick it up in your peripheral vision. There we go. All right, that's looking great. So let's take a look at our journey that we've taken to get here. So let's go to full screen. Here's our completed image. We started here. That was our original file. Again, the composition is wonderful. I'm not usually a big framer of stuff, but in this case, it really works. Just the way the castle fit in there. We've got the composition of the boat leading off. What were our issues? Well, first, obviously, the color and light. So let's take a look after we did it in Lightroom, and here's we ended up. And again, the image is fine. We've got a couple little things. We've got our spot here. We have our UFO or whatever the heck that is there. But we have the distraction of the rock. We have the distraction of this whatever life-saving buoy or whatever. And the distance is a little open right here and up in here. So we brought it into Photoshop, got rid of the distractions, and tightened up the image a little bit. And look how much better that is. They're very fine edits, but they really bring the image closer together. The composition is now much tighter. We decreased the space here. We got rid of the orange buoy. We got rid of this rock, added a little vignette, a little light path to help subliminally, that's easy for me to say, subliminally from the boat to the castle. And again, if we bounce back and forth, that was our Lightroom edit. When we come here, it also has the effect, it's almost an optical illusion. It looks like we've spread the image out left to right. We never touched it left to right. But by bringing the top down, we've made the castle bigger because it is taking up more physical space from top to bottom than it was. So really, again, one last time, when you see we started there and we ended up there with a really nice, really pleasant composition of Ross Castle in Killarney, Ireland. That was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope there were some things you can use. Content aware scale is the greatest tool sometimes when you need to adjust your composition. So thanks for watching. I had fun sharing that with you, and I look forward to seeing you online again soon. Well, that was fun, and I think the image came out really nice. In fact, I think it's going to deserve a print. It's worthy of a print. It's just something so peaceful about it, and the composition just flows so well. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you saw some interesting ways to use content-aware scale in order to tighten up the compositions in your landscape photography. Thanks for watching, and I will see you online again soon. Bye-bye.